I never thought I'd be telling this story, but I need to get it out. It all started when I met Emily. I'm 32, she's 29, and we met right here in Austin, Texas. From the moment I saw her, I was hooked. She had this incredible charm, a sharp wit, and a kind of quiet confidence that just drew you in. You felt like you could trust her with anything. Pretty early on, she told me she was divorced. She described her ex-husband as toxic and said the whole experience had been a nightmare. But she was finally ready to move on, to start fresh. And I was more than happy to be a part of that new beginning. We started dating, and things moved fast. It just felt right. Within a few months, she had moved into my apartment. It was perfect. She was the kind of partner you'd dream about. She cooked amazing meals, kept the apartment spotless, and even started helping me out with my small graphic design business. Her input was actually brilliant. She made me feel like the luckiest man on the planet. But then, little things started to feel off. Just small inconsistencies at first, things you'd normally brush aside. For example, anytime I asked a simple question about her ex, even something minor, she'd get really defensive. Her phone was like Fort Knox, always locked, always face down, and she'd never leave it unattended. A couple of times, I saw notifications pop up from names I didn't recognize, and she would snatch it away before I could even register what was happening. She often had this line she'd use: "I just need time to fix the mess he left behind." It became her go-to explanation for any strange behavior or financial weirdness. Then came the night that changed everything. We were just watching a movie, and out of nowhere, she just burst into tears. I held her, asking what was wrong, and she confessed everything. At least, what I thought was everything. She told me her ex had left her with a mountain of his debt. Credit cards maxed out in her name, unpaid medical bills from his accidents, personal loans he'd convinced her to co-sign. She said she was drowning, that the collectors were calling her non-stop, seeing her so broken, so vulnerable. All I wanted to do was fix it. I pulled her close and told her, "We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." She looked up at me, her eyes all red from crying, and she kissed me. Then she whispered, "That's why I love you. You're not like him." And I believed her. I believed every single word. I felt like her hero, her savior. I was going to be the one to rescue her from this toxic past and give her the life she deserved. That belief, right there, was my biggest mistake. It was the first step into a trap that was so much more elaborate and twisted than I could have ever imagined. I was about to find out that the debt wasn't the real story. It was just the cover for something far, far worse. A few weeks later, Emily came to me, her eyes red from crying. She said she'd found a solution to all her problems, but it was a big one. Apparently, her ex-husband still owed a huge sum of money, around $25,000, to a private lender. She explained that this lender was threatening to take legal action if the debt wasn't settled immediately. And here's the kicker. She claimed her name was somehow tied to this debt, so she would be dragged into the legal mess too. The tears started flowing again, and she grabbed my hands, her voice trembling. "This will prove to me that you really love me, that you're different." I have to admit, I hesitated. My gut was screaming that something was off. $25,000 is a lot of money. But then I looked at her, so vulnerable and desperate, and that little voice of reason got drowned out by emotion. They say love makes you do stupid things, and boy, were they right. I couldn't cover the whole amount, but I told her I would do my best. I went to the bank the next day and took out a personal loan for $15,000. It felt like a huge weight, but I convinced myself it was for a good cause, for the woman I loved. I transferred the money to the account she provided. She promised she had a way to cover the remaining $10,000 herself. I never asked to see any loan documents, any legal notices, or any proof of this supposed debt. I just took her word for it. I trusted her completely. That was my first big mistake. After I sent the money, I expected things to get better. I thought we'd finally be free of this ex-husband drama and could start our life together. But instead, things got even weirder. Emily started staying out late, claiming she had to meet with lawyers to finalize everything. Whenever her phone rang, she would rush into another room to take the call, speaking in hushed tones. The transparency we once had was gone, replaced by secrets and suspicion. One evening, she came home well past midnight. As she walked past me, I caught a whiff of a men's cologne that I didn't recognize. It definitely wasn't mine. My heart sank. I tried to ask her about it calmly. "Where were you, Emily? And what's that smell?" The reaction I got was explosive. Her face twisted with anger. "Are you serious?" she yelled. "After everything I have been through, you're accusing me of cheating. You're just as bad as him. I can't believe you." Before I could even respond, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. She didn't come home that night. I sat there in the dark, the silence of the apartment deafening. The argument, the secrets, the cologne. It all started to swirl in my head. The pieces weren't fitting together, and a cold, hard feeling began to settle in my stomach. It was a voice, a gut instinct, telling me that I had been played, that something was terribly wrong. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't just sit there and wait. I had to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next morning, I was on a mission. The first thing I did was dig up the contact information for the private lender Emily had given me. She had scribbled a name and a phone number on a piece of paper, telling me it was the person handling the debt collection. My hands were shaking a little as I dialed the number. I expected a gruff voice, maybe a formal business greeting. Instead, a friendly-sounding guy answered, "Good morning, Highway Motors. How can I help you?" Highway Motors. I was confused. I asked if this was a lending company. The man on the other end laughed. "No, sir," he said. "We're a small used car dealership." A used car dealership in a completely different town, about an hour's drive away. My heart started pounding. This made absolutely no sense. Why would a car dealership be collecting a $25,000 personal debt? I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing. There was only one thing to do. I grabbed my car keys and started driving. When I arrived at the dealership, it was exactly what it sounded, like a small, unassuming lot filled with used cars. I walked into the office, and the man behind the counter was the same person I'd spoken to on the phone. I showed him a picture of Emily on my phone and asked if he recognized her. He squinted at the photo. "Oh yeah, I remember her," he said. "She was in here a couple of weeks ago with her husband. Nice couple." My blood ran cold. Her husband. I managed to choke out. "Yeah," he said, pulling out his own phone. "They bought that cherry red Mustang over there. Seemed really happy. Paid a big chunk of it in cash." He then turned his phone screen toward me, and there it was. The picture of Emily, smiling, holding hands with her ex-husband. They were standing right next to the red Mustang, looking for all the world like a happy couple who had just made a big purchase. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach as the air left my lungs. Her husband, they weren't divorced. They were still together. It all crashed down on me at once. The late-night lawyer meetings, the secret phone calls, the cologne, the debt. It was all a lie, a carefully constructed scam. My $15,000 didn't go to any lender. It went toward a down payment on a sports car for them. They had been using these fake sob stories about debt and legal trouble to scam men out of their money, and then they would just disappear. And I was their latest victim. I drove home in a daze. I don't even remember the journey. All I felt was a hollow emptiness, a mixture of rage, humiliation, and heartbreak. I got back to my apartment and just waited. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I knew I had to confront her. Hours later, the key turned in the lock, and Emily walked in, acting as if nothing had happened. She started to apologize for the fight, saying she was just stressed. I didn't say a word. I just unlocked my phone, pulled up the picture from the car dealership, and showed it to her. The photo of her and her husband, smiling next to their new car. The color drained from her face. She went completely pale. For a moment, she just stared at the screen, and I could see the panic in her eyes. I expected her to deny it, to come up with another lie, another story. But she didn't. She just looked up at me, and her voice was a tiny, defeated whisper. "You weren't supposed to find out." That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just the cold-hard admission of her betrayal. In that moment, all the love I thought I had for her vanished, replaced by a cold clarity. I picked up my phone and called the police. The investigation took a few weeks, but the evidence was overwhelming. It turned out I wasn't their only victim. They had a pattern of fraud and identity theft going back years. Both Emily and her ex, her actual husband, were arrested. Seeing them in handcuffs didn't bring me any joy, just a grim sense of closure. Yes, I lost $15,000. Money I'm still paying off. But in the grand scheme of things, I consider myself lucky. I got out before I lost more. I saved my home, my sanity, and my future. This whole ordeal taught me a painful but valuable lesson. You have to protect yourself. Now, I try to help others see the red flags I so willingly ignored. I share my story not for pity, but as a warning. Because true love, real love, should never cost you your peace of mind. And it most definitely should not come with an invoice. Thank you for listening, and please always trust your gut. Take care. When I realized the lender's phone number actually belonged to a used car dealership, my world started spinning. But I knew what I had to do. With my stomach twisted in knots, I drove 2 hours to that small Texas town, rehearsing what I'd say, what I'd ask. The moment I walked into the dealership and mentioned Emily's name, the man behind the counter raised his eyebrows. "Emily," he said. "Yeah. She came here with her husband last month. They bought a used Mustang. Paid half in cash." My heart didn't just sink, it stopped. I could barely get the word out. "Husband?" I asked, my voice a whisper. He must have seen the look on my face because he pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. And there he was. Her ex-husband, the same man she claimed had destroyed her life, the one who was supposedly harassing her and making her life a living hell. They weren't divorced. They weren't enemies. They were partners. Partners in love and partners in crime. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. Every single thing she ever told me, every late-night phone call filled with tears, every story about needing money for a lawyer. It all clicked into place, forming a horrifying picture. I wasn't her savior. I wasn't the good guy who came to her rescue. I was just the next name on her list. I was the target. The anger came first, hot and blinding. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call the police right then and there. But then a cold, calculating thought pushed through the rage. A photo on a dealer's phone might not be enough. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. I needed her to confess. So I devised a plan. I had to play the part one last time. That night, I sent her a text. My fingers were shaking as I typed, "Hey, I spoke with the lender. He said everything's cleared up on your end. We should celebrate." Her reply came back almost instantly. "Oh my God, really? I love you. You're my miracle." Reading those words felt like a punch to the gut. Each word was a lie, a carefully crafted manipulation, and it burned in my chest. But I had to see this through. I played along. I told her I'd take her to dinner the next night to celebrate her freedom. I even managed to sound excited. I needed her to think everything was perfect, that I was still the fool she thought I was. I needed her to let her guard down completely. The next night, at the restaurant, she was radiant. She wore a red dress, the one she knew was my favorite. She kissed me when she arrived, a long, passionate kiss that felt like poison. She was playing her part to perfection, oozing charm and gratitude. We ordered drinks, and she chattered on about our future, about how we could finally be happy now that all her troubles were behind her. The whole time, I just smiled and nodded, my heart pounding against my ribs like a drum. When the drinks came, she lifted her glass to make a toast. "To you," she said, her eyes sparkling. "My hero." As she raised her glass, I casually placed my phone on the table between us. The red recording light was on. I let her take a sip. Then, keeping my voice as calm and steady as I could, I said, "So, when are you and your husband going to pick up the Mustang?" The effect was instantaneous. Her glass froze mid-air. All the color drained from her face. She looked like a ghost. She didn't move, didn't even breathe. It was as if I'd turned her to stone. Slowly, I pushed my phone across the table, showing her the picture from the dealership. Then the receipt for the car. Then the bank statement showing the loan transfer into her personal account, not some lawyer's escrow. The mask finally shattered. Her whole body started to tremble. She looked down at the table, unable to meet my eyes. "You weren't supposed to find out," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It was supposed to be quick. Just the money. Then we were going to disappear." I stood up slowly, the anger I'd been suppressing finally giving way to a profound, hollow emptiness. "You almost did," I said. And with that, I turned around and walked out of the restaurant, leaving her there with the bill, her glass of champagne, and a mountain of her own lies. I didn't hear from her after that night. The silence was deafening. About 2 weeks later, I got a call from a detective. They had finally caught up to her and her husband. It turned out I wasn't the first. They had a trail of victims, men across 3 different states. Each one had been reeled in with a different story, a unique emotional trap. Fake debts, family emergencies, sob stories about abusive exes. It was a sophisticated, heartless operation. She and her partner were arrested for a long list of charges: fraud, identity theft, grand larceny. The day I saw her in court was surreal. She looked small and broken. She refused to look at me, just kept her head down, and cried quietly the entire time. And in that moment, I realized I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel anger or even a sense of victory. I just felt empty. Because the woman I thought I loved, the person I had shared my dreams and fears with, she never really existed. She was a ghost, a character created to steal not just my money, but my trust. It's been about 6 months since all of that happened. The financial fallout is real. I'm still paying off the loan I took out for her, and it's a heavy burden. But you know what? Every time I make a payment, it's not a reminder of what I lost. It's a reminder of what I survived. It's a reminder of the lesson I learned, the hardest way possible. I've started rebuilding. I planted new trees in front of my apartment, a small act of bringing new life into my space. I deleted every single photo I had of her, erasing her digital footprint from my life. And I started going to therapy, which has been incredibly helpful in sorting through the confusion and the hurt. The biggest lesson I've learned through all this is simple, but powerful. When someone asks you to prove your love with money, they're not asking for love. They're asking for control. They're testing your boundaries to see how much they can take. Real love, genuine connection, doesn't come with a price tag. It does put you in a position where you have to sacrifice your own security for someone else's manufactured crisis. Real love makes you feel safe. It makes you feel seen. It makes you feel free. I'm telling this story not because I want pity or because I'm bitter. I'm telling it as a warning. Be careful who you give your heart to, and be even more careful who you give your trust to. Look for the red flags and listen to that little voice in your gut. It's usually right. Thank you for listening to my story. If it helps even one person avoid what I went through, then it was worth telling. Take care of yourselves out there.